The night the cameras caught her, Sophia didn't know she was standing at the center of a storm. Blackwood Tower had a way of making people feel small. Even the air inside it felt expensive, cold, filtered, clean in a way that reminded Sophia Martinez she did not belong. Not on the executive floors. Not in the bright glass hallways where the carpet swallowed footsteps and the walls displayed framed magazine covers of the man whose name sat in silver letters across the lobby, Ethan Blackwood. Sophia pushed her cleaning cart down the corridor of the 40th floor at 12:17 a.m., her shoulders stiff with fatigue. The building was finally quiet. That was the only reason she liked nights. In the day, people looked through her like she was part of the furniture. At night, she could work without having to pretend she didn't hear the jokes. "Hey, watch it," a young executive had snapped earlier that evening when she was wiping fingerprints off a glass door. "Some of us are still working." Sophia had stepped back quickly, murmured an apology, and watched him walk away without even glancing at her name tag. It wasn't just the words. It was the assumption that she was in the way, that her time didn't matter, that her presence lowered the room. She had learned to swallow moments like that. Learned to fold her pride into neat corners and store it somewhere safe until she got home. Home was a small 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, paint-chipped, heater moody, the kind of place you didn't show people if you wanted them to respect you. But Emma respected her. Emma, her little sister, the reason Sophia's body kept moving when her mind begged for rest. Their parents had been gone since Sophia was 19. A car accident on a rainy night, a phone call that split their lives in half. Sophia became two things at once that day, a grieving daughter and a second mother. She worked, she studied bills, she learned how to stretch rice and beans into 3 meals, learned how to smile at Emma so her sister wouldn't see fear. Now Emma was in college, brilliant, stubborn, determined to be a doctor. Sophia couldn't let her fall. Not after everything. That was why Sophia worked nights at Blackwood Enterprises. The pay was better than most cleaning jobs, the benefits were decent, and the overtime after corporate events helped. Tonight there had been a major celebration upstairs. Executives toasting deals, laughing too loudly, leaving behind a mess that smelled like champagne and entitlement. Sophia had spent an extra hour scrubbing red wine from cream carpet in the executive conference room. By the time she was done, her knees ached, her fingers burned from chemicals, and her uniform clung to her skin like it hated her. She checked the employee restroom near the elevator, locked for repairs. Sophia stared at the sign and felt a wave of frustration so sharp it made her eyes sting. The nearest bathroom was 5 floors down. She didn't have the energy for that trek just to change into a dry shirt. Then she remembered the private powder room attached to the executive conference room, reserved for VIP meetings. Nobody was there now. Nobody would know. She hesitated only long enough to hear her mother's voice in her head, "Be careful, Mija," then pushed the conference room door open. The room was dark except for the city glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan looked like a sea of stars. Sophia didn't turn on the lights. She just wanted to change fast and go. The attached powder room was cramped, barely enough space to turn around. With a tired sigh, Sophia stepped back into the conference room, turned her back to the windows, and pulled a spare uniform top from her bag. It was nothing dramatic. Nothing scandalous. Just a woman changing out of sweat-damp work clothes, moving quickly and quietly the way exhausted people do. She slipped out of her navy top, leaving on her undershirt, and reached for the clean shirt. That's when the tiny black dome in the corner of the ceiling continued doing what it always did. Recording. Up on the top floors, where the air felt even colder, Ethan Blackwood sat alone in his penthouse office with the lights dimmed. He hadn't gone home. He rarely did. Home was an idea other people had time for. Ethan had a company, a board, investors, and a reputation built on being unshakable. The world called him a billionaire. The magazines called him a genius. His employees called him Sir with careful mouths. But at night, when the building emptied, Ethan sometimes felt like a man who had forgotten how to be human. He rubbed his eyes and stared at the security system on his monitor. After big events, he reviewed footage. Not because he enjoyed it, but because he didn't trust people with access to sensitive rooms. He'd learned the hard way that charm and suits didn't prevent theft. He clicked through camera feeds. Hallways. Storage rooms. Elevator bays. Then movement appeared on the executive conference room feed. Ethan's posture tightened instantly. Someone was inside. That room held confidential documents, proprietary tech, the kind of information people would pay to steal. He tapped the feed larger. And froze. A woman stood in the dim conference room, her back half turned, her hands moving quickly as she changed her uniform top. He could see the outline of her undershirt, the curve of her shoulders, the tiredness in the way she sagged like her bones were carrying more than her body. Ethan's first instinct was immediate and fierce. Turn it off. He slammed his mouse, closed the feed, and pushed away from his desk like the screen had burned him. His heart pounded, not with thrill but with shame. That wasn't his moment to witness. He stared at the dark monitor, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. In his world, people took what they wanted and called it power. Ethan had spent years telling himself he was different. That he built things, not destroyed them. That he wasn't one more man with money acting like the rules didn't apply to him. And yet there it was. A camera in a private space recording a worker who believed she was alone. Ethan stood abruptly and paced to the window, looking out at the city he owned pieces of but could never truly touch. He felt something unexpected under the shame, something like awareness. Not desire. Not entitlement. Recognition. Because in the brief seconds before he shut the feed, he'd seen her face in the reflection of the glass. Not clearly, but enough to see exhaustion carved into her expression. Enough to see that she wasn't playing any role. She was just surviving. Ethan didn't know her name. Didn't know her story. But he knew what it looked like when someone carried too much. His assistant, his lawyers, his board, none of them looked like that. None of them moved like a person who measured every dollar, every hour, every breath. For a long moment, Ethan stood still, hands braced on the window frame, the city shining below like it didn't care about anybody's secrets. Then he walked back to his desk and reopened the security system. His cursor hovered over the conference room footage. His finger hesitated. And then Ethan did something he had never done before. He pulled the clip up and deleted it. Not because he wanted to erase evidence of a mistake. Because it was never his to keep. He sat back down and exhaled slowly, feeling a tightness in his chest he didn't understand. He told himself it was over. Done. A strange accident in a long night. But when he tried to return to work, the numbers on his screen blurred. All he could think about was the look on that woman's face, like she'd been running for years and still wasn't sure she'd reach the finish line. The next morning, Sophia came home as the sun rose, her body heavy, her mind numb. Emma was already awake at the kitchen table, textbooks open, hair in a messy bun, pen tapping like a heartbeat. "You're late," Emma said gently, and then her expression softened. "Soph, you look like you're going to collapse." Sophia forced a smile and dropped her bag by the door. "Big event. Big mess." Emma stood and poured her coffee without being asked. "You don't have to do this forever." Sophia took the cup, warmth seeping into her palms. "Yes, I do," she said, but her voice was soft, not angry. "At least until you're done." Emma's eyes shone. "I got an email. I got invited to apply for a research program this summer. It's competitive." Sophia's exhaustion lifted just enough for pride to pierce through. "Emma, that's amazing." "It's unpaid," Emma admitted, and the joy dimmed around the edges. "But it could change everything for med school." Sophia's stomach tightened. Unpaid meant rent was heavier. Food was harder. Means Sophia would have to work more. She set down her coffee carefully so Emma wouldn't see her hands shake. "We'll figure it out," Sophia said. "We always do." Emma reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You shouldn't have to carry me." Sophia smiled, but something in her chest hurt. "You're not a burden," she said. "You're my reason." She went to bed a few minutes later, pulling the blanket over her shoulders, telling herself the world would not shift just because she changed shirts in a dark room. But in Blackwood Tower, Ethan Blackwood sat in a morning meeting and heard none of the words around him. He kept seeing a tired woman in a conference room, believing she was unseen. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight of something he couldn't buy. Conscience. By nightfall, Ethan had made a decision that startled even him. He was going to find out who she was. Not to claim her. Not to control her. But to make sure that the company with his name on it wasn't the kind of place where a person like her had to hide in darkness to change a shirt. And somewhere deep inside, another thought whispered, dangerous, unfamiliar, alive. Maybe the thing that needed changing wasn't her life. Maybe it was his. Ethan didn't look for her the way powerful men usually did. He didn't call security and demand names. Didn't pull employee files like they were menus. He tried to convince himself that doing that would make him the villain in his own story. So he did something almost ridiculous. He showed up. He stayed late. He walked the halls without an entourage. He took the elevator down to floors he'd never stepped onto unless there was a crisis. And for the first time, he noticed how the building lived when executives went home. On the 40th floor, near 1 a.m., he saw her. Sophia was kneeling near a copier, wiping spilled toner with careful strokes. Her hair was pulled back, her sleeves rolled up. She moved like she had practiced being quiet. Ethan stopped walking. He realized something that made his throat tighten. She had probably been working in his building for years without him ever knowing her name. That wasn't an accident. That was a system. He approached slowly, unsure what to say. His shoes were too expensive for this hallway. His presence was too loud. Sophia looked up and went pale. Her hands flew to her sides, like a student caught out of place. "Mr. Blackwood," she whispered, standing quickly. "I'm sorry, did I miss something? I can redo it." Ethan hated the fear in her voice. Hated what it implied she was used to. "No," he said immediately, softer than he spoke to most people. "You're not in trouble." Sophia nodded but didn't relax. Her eyes dropped, respectful but guarded. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. "Sophia Martinez, sir." "Martinez," Ethan repeated as if saying it correctly mattered. "How long have you been with us?" "Almost 3 years." Ethan glanced at her hands, red, chapped, the knuckles slightly cracked. A small detail that hit him harder than any headline about corporate responsibility. "You're on the night shift," he said. "Yes, sir." "It pays better." "Of course it does," Ethan thought, "and of course you sacrifice daylight for survival." There was silence. Sophia shifted her weight, waiting for whatever came next, because people like Ethan rarely approached people like her without reason. Ethan started then stopped. He had no script for this. No negotiation strategy. No board-approved statement. Sophia's voice was careful. "Is there anything you need, Mr. Blackwood? I can call maintenance or—" "No," he said again. "I just wanted to introduce myself properly." Sophia blinked like she wasn't sure she heard him right. Ethan felt awkward, something he almost never felt. "Thank you," he added, because it was the only honest thing in his mind. "For keeping the place running." Sophia's mouth parted slightly, then closed. She nodded once. "It's my job." Ethan heard the unspoken part. "It's my job to be invisible." "Have a good night, Sophia," he said. Sophia looked confused, but she murmured, "You too, sir," and returned to cleaning. Ethan walked away, feeling like he had done nothing and yet something had shifted. Over the next weeks, chance encounters became a pattern. Ethan found himself learning small things about her without trying. She always checked the corner of rooms first, as if expecting someone to yell. She never ate in the fancy cafeteria upstairs, only in the cramped break room near the freight elevator. She always carried a worn notebook in her bag. One night, Ethan saw her sitting alone on the floor of an empty office, knees pulled close, her forehead resting on her arms. He stopped in the doorway, suddenly worried. "Sophia?" She jerked upright, eyes wide, wiping her face quickly. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sorry. I wasn't sleeping. I was just taking a minute." Ethan stepped inside, lowering his voice. "You look like you're hurting." Sophia forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine." Ethan knew, "I'm fine," was often what people said when they were drowning. He pulled a chair closer and sat, leaving distance so she wouldn't feel cornered. "I won't keep you long," he said. "But, what's wrong?" Sophia's gaze fell to the floor. Her pride fought her exhaustion. Ethan could see the battle play across her face. Finally she whispered, "It's money? It's always money." Ethan nodded once, not pretending he understood, because his money had never been a source of fear. He didn't want to insult her with false empathy. Sophia's words came out like a cracked dam. She spoke about Emma's tuition, about rent going up, about her sister being offered an unpaid summer research program that could change her future, and how Sophia didn't know how to carry them through 3 months without Emma's part-time income. "She doesn't want to give it up," Sophia said, voice shaking. "And I don't want to be the reason she gives up her dream." Ethan listened, something heavy filling his chest. He had been called a visionary leader, but no one had ever described him as someone who could sit with another person's pain without trying to fix it like a problem. When Sophia finished, she looked embarrassed, as if she had said too much. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I shouldn't have. This isn't professional." Ethan leaned forward. "You did nothing wrong." Sophia swallowed. "It's just, sometimes I feel like the world is built for people who never have to choose between being tired and being hungry." Ethan's jaw tightened. "It shouldn't be." Sophia gave a small, bitter laugh. "But it is." Ethan hesitated, then said carefully, "I want to help." Sophia's posture stiffened immediately. "No. It wouldn't be charity," Ethan said, choosing his words like glass. "I've been reviewing how we treat essential staff. Night shift, cleaning, security, maintenance. The wages are not what they should be." Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicious. Why are you telling me this? Because you're part of it, Ethan said simply. And because I owe it to the people who keep my company alive. Sophia shook her head. Mr. Blackwood, with respect, companies always say that. And then nothing changes. The honesty startled him and he respected her more for it. Ethan took a slow breath. Then let me be the first to prove it, he said. There's a position opening, day shift facilities coordinator. It's not executive. It's a bridge. Better pay, benefits, stability. You already know the building better than anyone. I think you could do it. Sophia stared at him like he had offered her the moon. I only have a high school diploma, she said. And you don't know me. Ethan's chest tightened again because he did know one thing. She was the kind of person who survived without asking the world for permission. I know you work, he said. I know you care. And I know you're smart enough to manage an entire life on a salary that doesn't respect you. Sophia stood abruptly, anger flashing through her exhaustion. This is pity. It's not, Ethan insisted. Sophia's eyes shone. Do you know what pity feels like from someone who has everything? It feels like being reminded I'm small. Ethan stood too careful not to tower. Sophia. No, she said, voice trembling. I don't want your help. I want a world where I don't need it. Then she walked out. Ethan stayed in the empty office, feeling like he had failed again. Later that night, Ethan returned to his penthouse and opened the security system, not to watch her, but to confront what he'd done. He found the date of the clip, and saw that it was gone. Deleted. His own hand had done it. He stared at the empty file slot and felt an unexpected surge of relief, because at least one line hadn't been crossed. Then he did something else. He called his head of security. Effective immediately, Ethan said, voice cold. I want every camera angle reviewed for privacy risks. No recording in spaces where staff would reasonably expect privacy. And I want policies drafted by morning. The security chief hesitated. Sir, that would require rewiring and... Do it, Ethan said. And if anyone argues, tell them it's my order. When he hung up, Ethan stared at the city again and realized the problem wasn't just cameras. It was culture. And culture didn't change with one promotion offer. It changed when power stopped protecting itself and started protecting people. Ethan vowed to try again, not by giving Sophia a handout, but by building something she could step into without losing her dignity. And in the shadows of that vow, something else waited, quiet, dangerous, and true. Someone inside his own company didn't want the system questioned. And if Ethan moved the wrong piece, Sophia wouldn't just be underestimated. She'd be targeted. On Thursday night, Sophia's phone rang while she was cleaning a restroom on the 42nd floor. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped before she even answered. Hello? Ms. Martinez, a crisp voice said. This is Jennifer from Human Resources. You need to come to the HR office immediately. There has been an incident requiring your attention. Sophia's throat went dry. An incident? Yes. Bring your employee badge. The line clicked dead. Sophia stared at the phone like it had bitten her. HR didn't call cleaners in the middle of the night unless something was wrong. Her mind raced through every possibility. Had someone accused her of stealing? Had she thrown away something important? Had a camera caught her using the executive conference room? She felt heat rush to her face. The changing. Sophia's hands began to shake. She had told herself it was private. She had believed the darkness protected her. If she had been recorded, if someone had seen, if they were calling her because of that. Shame hit first. Then anger. Why would a company have cameras in a place like that? She forced herself to breathe, locked her cart, and made her way down to the HR floor. The HR office was too bright for midnight. White walls. Too many glass panels. The kind of place designed to feel clean while making people feel exposed. Jennifer sat behind a desk with a folder open. Beside her stood Mark Dalloway, the facilities manager, an arrogant man who acted like cleaners were inconveniences he tolerated. Sophia's heart sank. Mark looked pleased. Ms. Martinez, Jennifer said, voice formal. Have a seat. Sophia sat slowly, palms damp. Jennifer slid a paper across the desk. A complaint has been filed. Allegations of misconduct. Sophia's ears rang. What kind of misconduct? Mark leaned forward, smirking. You tell us. We have it on record you were in the executive conference room after hours. Sophia's breath caught. I cleaned it. That was my assignment. Jennifer tapped the folder. It says you entered a restricted area without authorization. Sophia's voice shook. I had authorization. The event happened. It needed cleaning. Mark's smile widened. And what else did you do in there, Sophia? The way he said her name made her skin crawl. Sophia stared at him, realization rising like ice. You knew. Jennifer's tone sharpened. Ms. Martinez, this is serious. You understand that executive spaces contain sensitive materials. Company policy. I didn't touch anything, Sophia said quickly. I cleaned. That's it. Mark's eyes glittered with cruelty. That's not what the footage shows. Sophia's blood turned to fire. Footage? Jennifer's face stayed neutral. There is video. Sophia's vision blurred. Why is there video of? Mark cut her off with a shrug. Security cameras are everywhere. You should know that. You people should always assume you're being watched. Sophia flinched at you people, the casual contempt. Jennifer slid another paper forward. If you cooperate, this can be resolved quietly. We can offer you a choice. Resign, effective immediately, or face termination for policy violation. Termination would make it difficult to find future employment. Sophia's chest tightened painfully. I didn't do anything wrong. Mark leaned closer, voice low. You changed in that room, didn't you? Thought you were alone. Thought no one would see. Sophia's face burned so hot she felt dizzy. Jennifer's eyes flicked away for a fraction of a second, as if even she knew this was ugly. Sophia forced her voice steady. I changed my shirt. I was soaked. The employee restroom was locked. I didn't expose myself. I was just trying to work. Mark's smile was satisfied. So you admit it? Sophia's hands clenched. I admit I'm human. Mark straightened, enjoying himself. Human with a job you can lose. Sophia's breath came in sharp bursts. She thought of Emma. Tuition. Rent. Bills. The world she held together with tired hands. Jennifer's voice softened, but it didn't sound kind. It sounded practiced. Ms. Martinez, if you sign the resignation, we can move on. Sophia stared at the paper. She could feel the trap closing. Then a new voice cut through the room like a blade. Step away from her. Ethan Blackwood stood in the doorway, his presence suddenly making the office feel smaller. Jennifer went pale. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. Mr. Blackwood, Jennifer stammered, standing quickly. Ethan's eyes were locked on Sophia. Not hungry, not possessive, but furious on her behalf. Sophia stood too, trembling. Sir, I. Ethan raised a hand gently, signaling her not to speak yet. His gaze snapped to Mark. You said there was footage. Mark swallowed. Yes, sir. Security. Ethan's voice dropped to ice. Show it. Jennifer fumbled with her computer. Mr. Blackwood, it's sensitive. Show it, Ethan repeated. Jennifer pulled up a file. The screen displayed the executive conference room. A dim outline of Sophia moving quickly, changing into a clean uniform shirt. Nothing indecent. Nothing scandalous. Just tired. Just private. Sophia's stomach twisted with humiliation. Ethan's jaw clenched. Then he looked at Jennifer and Mark. This, Ethan said slowly, is what you called misconduct? Mark tried to recover. Sir, she was in a restricted area and... Ethan cut him off. She was assigned to clean the room. Mark's eyes darted. But company policy... Ethan stepped forward. Company policy also includes dignity, privacy, basic decency. You used a worker's vulnerable moment as leverage to threaten her livelihood. Jennifer's voice trembled. We were following protocol. No, Ethan said. You were following appetite. Mark's face flushed. Sir, with respect. Ethan's voice snapped. Don't speak to me about respect when you treat people like prey. Sophia stood frozen, heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Ethan turned to her then, his tone shifting, still intense but careful. Sophia, I owe you an apology. Sophia's eyes widened. For what? Ethan swallowed once, and for the first time she saw something human in him. Something like shame. For the fact that my building recorded you in a moment you believed was private. For the fact that my staff used it against you. And for the fact that you ever felt you had to hide to do something as simple as change a shirt. Sophia's voice shook. I didn't know. I know, Ethan said. And that's the point. He reached to the keyboard and deleted the file in front of them. Mark jolted. Sir, that's evidence. It's not evidence of wrongdoing, Ethan said. It's evidence of a broken system. Jennifer looked like she might faint. Ethan turned back to Sophia. You're not resigning. You're not being terminated. And this meeting never should have happened. Sophia's throat tightened. Then why did it? Ethan's gaze cut to Mark. Because some people confuse power with permission. Mark's face hardened. Sir, are you accusing me? Ethan's voice was deadly calm. I'm telling you you're on administrative leave pending investigation. Jennifer gasped. Mr. Blackwood. And you, Ethan said to Jennifer, will provide me every complaint you've ever processed involving night staff. Every one. We're going to find out how long this has been happening. Sophia's knees felt weak. Ethan looked at her again. You can go home, he said quietly. You'll be paid for the rest of your shift. And tomorrow, if you're willing, I want to meet with you. Not as your CEO trying to hand you charity. As a person trying to make this right. Sophia stared at him, tears burning behind her eyes. She wasn't used to someone powerful standing between her and cruelty. She wasn't used to being defended. She wasn't sure whether to trust it. But as she walked out of HR, she saw Mark Dalloway's face behind her, angry, humiliated, and not finished. And Sophia realized, this wasn't over. Because men like Mark didn't lose quietly. They plotted. And the next move would decide whether Sophia stayed invisible. Or became unstoppable. Sophia didn't sleep when she got home. She sat at the kitchen table while Emma studied, her coffee untouched, her mind replaying the HR office over and over like a bruise you can't stop pressing. Emma finally noticed. Soph, what happened? Sophia tried to answer, but her throat closed. How did you explain to your little sister that your poverty had been turned into a weapon? That your exhaustion had almost cost you your job? That a billionaire had walked in like a storm and saved you? Emma's eyes filled with worry. Sophia, talk to me. Sophia whispered, they tried to make me resign. Emma went still. Why? Sophia stared at her hands. Because I changed my shirt in a conference room. Emma's face twisted with outrage. That's it? That's, Soph, that's not misconduct. That's being a person. Sophia laughed bitterly. Mark said people like me should assume we're always being watched. Emma's voice shook. Who's Mark? Sophia swallowed. The facilities manager. Emma stood so fast her chair scraped. We should report him. Sophia's eyes stung. I tried to survive him. That's different. Emma's anger softened into something fierce and protective. You shouldn't have to survive your job. Sophia looked at her sister, the future doctor, the dream Sophia had held up with her own back, and felt something inside her shift. Maybe surviving wasn't enough anymore. The next day, Sophia went to Blackwood Tower on little sleep and too much adrenaline. Ethan had asked to meet. She almost didn't go. Pride told her to stay away from his world. But Emma had said something that stuck like a nail. You shouldn't have to survive your job. Sophia arrived early and was escorted upstairs, not to HR, but to a quiet conference room with warm lighting and no cameras in sight. Ethan was already there. No entourage. No assistant. Just him, sleeves rolled, coffee in hand, looking like he hadn't slept either. Sophia stood at the door. Mr. Blackwood. Ethan stood immediately. Sophia. Thank you for coming. She didn't sit until he did. Silence settled. Sophia broke it first. Why did you intervene? Ethan's gaze held hers, steady. Because what they did was wrong. That's not an answer, Sophia said, surprising herself with the boldness. Ethan exhaled slowly. You're right. He paused. I saw the footage the night it happened. Sophia's stomach dropped. Heat rushed to her face. Ethan's voice was careful. I shut it off immediately. I deleted it then. But I should have done more. I should have ensured privacy policies existed before you ever had to risk that. Sophia's hands clenched in her lap. So you knew? Yes, Ethan said, and there was no excuse in his tone. Only accountability. And I'm sorry. Sophia stared at him, searching for the usual arrogance she expected from men like him. But Ethan looked haunted. Sophia's voice came out thin. Do you know what it feels like to be threatened over something so small? Ethan swallowed. No. Sophia nodded once. Then don't pretend you do. I won't, Ethan said quietly. But I want to learn how to fix what I can. Sophia's laugh was sharp. Fix what you can? You're Ethan Blackwood. You can fix anything. Ethan's eyes flickered with pain. Money can fix structures. It can't fix trust. Sophia stared, startled by the honesty. Ethan slid a folder across the table. This is not a promotion offer, he said quickly, seeing her tense. It's a proposal. Sophia didn't touch it. Ethan continued. I'm creating a worker protections unit, independent from HR, anonymous reporting, real investigations, and a wage review for all night staff, starting with immediate pay raises. Sophia's breath caught. Why? Because my company has been profiting off people's silence, Ethan said. And that ends. Sophia's voice shook. Mark will fight you. Ethan's mouth tightened. Mark is already fighting. He opened his laptop and turned it toward her. An email chain. Anonymous complaints. Reports of Mark humiliating night staff, making inappropriate comments, threatening hours, demanding favors in exchange for overtime approvals. People too afraid to sign their names. Sophia's hands flew to her mouth. Ethan's voice was low. You weren't the first. You were just the one he got careless with. Sophia felt rage rise, hot, clean, terrifying. How long has this been happening? Too long, Ethan said. Sophia's eyes burned. Then why didn't anyone stop him? Ethan's gaze didn't flinch. Because power protects itself. Until it doesn't. Sophia stared at the complaints, voices like hers swallowed and written down with shaking hands. She realized something. Mark hadn't just tried to destroy her job. He had tried to teach her a lesson. Stay small. Stay quiet. Be grateful. Sophia's voice steadied. What do you need from me? Ethan looked surprised. I don't want to put you in danger. Sophia's chin lifted. I've been in danger. I just didn't have a witness. Ethan's expression softened with respect. I need truth, he said. I need someone willing to testify. Willing to stand up and say, this happened. Sophia's stomach twisted. Testify meant retaliation. It meant whispers, blame, people calling her a troublemaker. It meant risk. But then she thought of Emma. And of every cleaner who swallowed humiliation like poison. Sophia nodded slowly. I'll do it. Ethan's eyes widened. Sophia. She held up a hand. On one condition. Name it, Ethan said. Sophia leaned forward, voice firm. This can't be about you saving me. This has to be about them being safe. Ethan nodded once, solemn. Agreed. Over the next week, everything moved fast. Ethan hired an external investigator. He suspended Mark, then fired 2 supervisors who had covered for him. He made a company-wide announcement. Harassment and intimidation would be met with termination, regardless of rank. He increased night shift pay immediately. But Mark didn't go quietly. One evening, Sophia found a note shoved in her locker. You think he'll protect you forever? You'll go back to being nothing. Her hands shook. That night, someone slashed one of her car tires. Another cleaner whispered that Mark's friends were spreading rumors, that Sophia seduced Ethan. That she planned it. That she wanted money. Sophia felt sick. That's how they punished women like her, by turning survival into sin. Ethan confronted the rumors publicly. If you talk about any employee this way, he told the executive team in a meeting, you're not just gossiping. You're participating in harm. Still, the tension grew. Then the real crisis hit. A cyber attack. Late one night, the company's systems began to glitch. Doors locked randomly. Payroll files corrupted. Security alarms triggered without cause. Panic spread. Ethan was pulled into emergency mode. Sophia, working her shift, watched chaos erupt. Guards running, supervisors shouting, people blaming night staff for messing with things. And then Mark's voice echoed in her memory. You people should always assume you're being watched. Sophia looked at the security terminal near the freight elevator and noticed something small. A device plugged into the back of it, something that wasn't there before. Her heartbeat spiked. Sophia didn't have a tech degree. But she had something else. Years of paying attention because being invisible meant you survived by noticing everything. She grabbed her phone and called the only number she'd been given, just in case. Ethan answered on the first ring. Sophia? There's something on the security terminal, she said quickly. A device. It looks planted. Ethan's voice sharpened. Where are you? Freight elevator bay. 40th floor. Don't touch it, Ethan said. I'm sending. Sophia's eyes locked on the device. And she realized, if she waited, the attack might wipe payroll. Might erase raises. Might create evidence to blame night staff. Might be Mark's revenge. Sophia whispered, it's already hurting people. Then she did what she had always done. She acted. Carefully, she unplugged the device and yanked the Ethernet cable out with it. The terminal screen flashed, then stabilized. The alarm stopped. A moment later, Ethan's security team stormed the bay. Sophia stood there, breath shaking, holding the device like proof. When Ethan arrived, his eyes met hers, wide with shock. You stopped it, he said. Sophia's voice trembled. I just noticed. Ethan stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Not as a cleaner. As a protector. As someone who saved his company when the people with titles were still shouting. And in that moment, the rumors didn't matter. Because Sophia wasn't nothing. She was the reason the system didn't collapse. And now everyone was going to know it. The investigation ended with the kind of truth that makes a room go silent. Mark Dalloway hadn't just been cruel. He had been calculating. The external investigator presented the findings to Ethan and the board. Multiple testimonies, documented threats, surveillance misuse, retaliation patterns, and, worst of all, evidence tying Mark to the cyber attack attempt. He had planted the device to sabotage systems and create chaos that could be blamed on night staff. He intended to discredit Ethan's reforms and punish the woman who had made him fall from power. Mark was arrested. But justice didn't feel like fireworks to Sophia. It felt like exhaustion leaving her bones for the first time in years. It felt like breathing without fear. Ethan didn't announce the outcome like a victory lap. He called a company-wide meeting, executives, assistants, engineers, janitorial staff, everyone, standing together in the same auditorium for once. He stepped onto the stage and said something people didn't expect from a billionaire CEO. I failed. The murmurs spread. Ethan continued, voice steady. I built a company that created wealth and I told myself that was enough. But wealth without dignity is theft. And dignity without protection is a lie. He spoke plainly about worker protections. About independent reporting. About zero tolerance. About pay equity reviews. About privacy policy changes, including removing cameras from areas that could violate reasonable expectation of privacy. Then he looked out at the crowd and said, this week our company was saved by someone many of you have never learned to see. A spotlight shifted to the side of the stage. Sophia froze as Ethan gestured for her. Her heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to stay invisible. But then she remembered the note. You'll go back to being nothing. Sophia stood up slowly and walked forward. The room was so quiet she could hear her own footsteps. Ethan didn't grab her hand. Didn't display ownership. He simply stood beside her with respectful distance as if saying, you are here by your own power. This is Sophia Martinez, Ethan said. She works the night shift. She has kept this building running for 3 years. And when sabotage threatened our systems, she noticed what others missed and acted. Sophia's cheeks burned. She swallowed, eyes scanning faces, some surprised, some ashamed, some inspired. Ethan's voice carried. Sophia is not a symbol. She is not a headline. She is a person, one who has been underestimated in this building, disrespected and threatened. That ends today. Applause started hesitantly, then grew until it filled the auditorium like thunder. Sophia's eyes stung. She hadn't been clapped for since her high school graduation. Ethan turned to her. If you want to say something you can, he said softly. Sophia's hands shook as she stepped to the microphone. She took a breath. My sister is in college, she began, voice unsteady but clear. And for years I've been working nights because it pays more, because dreams are expensive, and because sometimes the world makes you feel like you have to apologize for wanting better. She paused, swallowing emotion. I've been called invisible, Sophia continued. I've been treated like I should be grateful just to exist in the corners of rooms. But I learned something the hard way. She looked at the crowd. The corners are where you see the truth. A hush fell. Sophia's voice strengthened. I don't want pity. I don't want to be saved. I want respect. For me. For everyone who cleans, fixes, guards, serves, delivers. Everyone who keeps life running while others pretend the world runs by itself. Applause erupted again, louder, steadier, real. Sophia stepped back, heart racing, tears finally falling. After the meeting, people approached her differently. Not all of them. Not perfectly. But enough. An engineer introduced himself and thanked her. A senior manager apologized quietly. A night security guard squeezed her shoulder and whispered, you did it for all of us. For the first time, Sophia felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope without fear attached. Days later, Ethan called her into his office. Sophia stood by the window, city sprawled below. Ethan didn't offer her a miracle job, like a reward. He offered options. A scholarship fund, he said, sliding documents across the desk. Fully funded summer program support for employees' families. Emma would qualify. Sophia's breath hitched. You're doing this for everyone? Ethan nodded. For everyone. Sophia blinked hard. Then Emma can take the program. Yes, Ethan said. Without you breaking your back. Sophia stared at the papers, feeling the world tilt, like a door had opened where there had only been walls. Ethan hesitated, then added quietly, and for you, if you ever want that coordinator role or training or a path upward, you'll have it. But only if it's what you choose. Sophia's throat tightened. This was what respect looked like. Just, she whispered, thank you. Ethan's gaze softened. I'm the one who should thank you. Sophia took a breath, then asked the question that had been aching inside her. Why did you really notice me? Ethan's eyes held hers. Because you were real, he said. And because I realized my company had become a place where real people suffered quietly while others celebrated loudly. Sophia nodded, understanding. So you changed. Ethan gave a small, humble smile. I'm trying. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. Try isn't enough. Ethan nodded, accepting the challenge. Then I'll do. Sophia left his office with papers in her bag and something new in her chest. Not romance. Not fantasy. Power. The kind that comes from being seen, believed, and finally choosing not to shrink. That night, Sophia went home and found Emma at the table, eyes anxious. Sophia placed the scholarship papers down. Emma read them, mouth falling open. Soph, is this real? Sophia laughed through tears. It's real. Emma stood and wrapped her arms around her. You did this. Sophia hugged her sister tightly. No, she whispered. We did. And as Sophia looked out the apartment window at the city, she understood the moral of her own story. The world doesn't change when the powerful feel inspired. It changes when the powerless refuse to stay silent. And when someone with power finally chooses to listen.